You are not tired because life is hard. You are tired because your mind has been carrying the wrong weight. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fix the outside first. Better timing, better luck, better people, better opportunities. And they wonder why nothing truly changes, why the same patterns keep returning with different names. The truth is uncomfortable but simple. Your life follows the direction of your most trained thoughts. Success is not personality. It is not luck. It is not something you're born with. Success is a trained inner system. Every thought you repeat strengthens a pathway. Every emotion you obey reinforces a habit. Every time you run from discomfort, you teach your mind that discomfort is danger. And every time you face what is hard on purpose, you teach your mind one thing: you can be trusted. That is why mindset is most of the battle. Not because mindset is magic, but because mindset decides how you respond when pressure arrives. And pressure always arrives. Pressure exposes who you really are. It reveals whether your self-talk becomes a weapon or a wound. You've seen it before. Two people face the same obstacle. One collapses, one adapts, one complains, one builds. The difference is not intelligence or resources. It is the inner script running when things go wrong. What they tell themselves when no one is watching. What they choose when comfort offers an easy exit. Your thoughts shape your habits. Your habits shape your actions. Your actions shape your results. And your results shape your life. This is not motivation. Motivation is unstable. You are not here to feel inspired for 5 minutes. You are here to build a mind that does not collapse when inspiration disappears. Your mind will resist change. It will whisper, "Stay safe, stay small, don't risk it." That voice feels like you, but it isn't. It is an old survival pattern trained for familiarity, not growth. And here is where freedom begins. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. A thought can enter your mind, but you decide whether it becomes a command. This audiobook is designed to train that decision, to build clarity instead of chaos, consistency instead of excuses, power that is calm, steady, and earned. Your potential is not optional. Your future is being built right now. This is where you stop consuming information and start becoming someone new. If this message already speaks to you like the video, it helps YouTube recognize what truly matters to your mind. Subscribe so you don't miss the next layer of this journey. And stay until the end. The final moments always carry the quietest power. Chapter 1. Change how you think to change your life. Success does not begin when you get a new opportunity. It does not begin when someone finally believes in you. It does not begin when conditions improve. Success begins the moment you decide that the way you think is no longer acceptable for the life you want to live. Most people wait. They wait for confidence. They wait for clarity. They wait for certainty. They wait for motivation. And while they wait, nothing changes. Because the mind they are using to wait is the same mind that created the problem in the first place. If your thinking stays the same, your results will stay familiar. Not because you are incapable, but because your internal rules have not changed. Your results will always match your dominant thoughts, not your occasional thoughts, not your motivational thoughts on good days, your dominant thoughts. The ones that show up when things are uncomfortable. The ones that speak when you fail. The ones that decide whether you try again or quietly step back. If you think like someone who quits, you will quit. If you think like someone who builds, you will find a way to build. Even when it is slow. Even when it hurts. Even when no one is watching. This is where most people misunderstand mindset. They think mindset is about being positive. It is not. It is about being accurate, disciplined, and intentional. A strong mindset does not deny difficulty. It acknowledges difficulty and responds with action. A weak mindset waits for life to get easier. A strong mindset trains itself for resistance, because resistance is guaranteed. Life does not become easier. It only changes the shape of its challenges. If your mind is fragile, every small problem will feel like a crisis. Every delay will feel like failure. Every mistake will feel personal. But if your mind is trained, problems become puzzles. Pressure becomes feedback. Failure becomes data. The situation does not change. Your interpretation does. And interpretation decides behavior. You must reach a point where you no longer react emotionally to everything that goes wrong. Emotional reactions feel natural, but they are expensive. They drain energy, distort thinking, and delay action. When you react emotionally, you give control to the moment. When you respond intentionally, you keep control. The shift is simple, but not easy. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What do I do now?" That question alone changes everything. A victim mindset asks why. A builder mindset asks how. A victim mindset waits for rescue. A builder mindset assumes responsibility. And responsibility is not punishment. Responsibility is power. The moment you accept responsibility, you regain the ability to act. Most people are trapped because they expect someone else to fix what only they can change. They expect motivation to appear. They expect confidence to arrive. They expect fear to disappear. But fear does not disappear before action. Confidence does not arrive before effort. Motivation does not precede movement. These things follow action, not the other way around. This is where science quietly confirms what experience already proves. Your brain is plastic. It rewires itself based on repetition. Thoughts that are repeated become default pathways. Pathways become automatic responses. Automatic responses become habits. When you repeatedly think, "I can't handle this," your brain strengthens avoidance circuits. When you repeatedly think, "I will figure this out," your brain strengthens problem-solving circuits. The brain does not care if the thought is helpful. It cares if it is repeated. That means every thought you allow to run unchecked is training you into a future identity. Small thoughts matter more than dramatic ones. A single decision to take responsibility. A single decision to stop blaming. A single decision to try again, instead of quitting. These are not emotional moments. They are structural changes. Over time, those decisions turn into beliefs. Beliefs guide behavior. Behavior reshapes identity. And identity determines standards. When your self-image changes, your standards change. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop agreeing to things that pull you backward. You stop negotiating with the voice that tells you to stay small. Not because life is suddenly easy, but because your mind is no longer working against you. Expect resistance. Your mind will push back. It will try to protect you from uncertainty. It will tell you to stay where it is familiar. That voice is not your enemy, but it is outdated. It is operating on old data. Data from a time when avoidance felt safer than growth. You do not silence that voice by fighting it. You silence it by acting anyway. This is why changing your thinking is not a one-time decision. It is daily training. You train your mind the same way you train your body. Repetition, effort, and consistency. You do not think one strong thought and expect your life to change. You feed your mind better thoughts repeatedly, even when they feel unnatural, even when they feel fake, even when you are tired. Over time, something shifts. Your perception changes. You start seeing yourself differently. You stop seeing effort as punishment and start seeing it as proof. Proof that you are becoming someone stronger than your excuses. This change is not just about achievement. It is about how you treat yourself when you fail. When you make a mistake, do you attack yourself or correct yourself? When you feel fear, do you freeze or do you move? When things don't work out, do you collapse or adjust? These moments are quiet, but they decide the direction of your life. Look at your recent past. What kept you stuck? Was it really your environment, or was it how you thought about your environment? Was it truly lack of time, or was it lack of priority? Was it inability, or was it avoidance disguised as logic? You do not change your life by changing events. You change your life by changing the story you tell yourself about those events. Change the story, and you change the ending. The world does not reward people who wait for clarity. It rewards people who think clearly under pressure. Clear thinking creates patience. Patience creates endurance. Endurance carries you when motivation disappears. Discipline does not begin in your calendar. It begins in your beliefs. If you believe effort is pointless, you will avoid it. If you believe progress compounds, you will show up. Not because it feels good, but because it makes sense. And that is the shift you are making now. You are no longer waiting to feel ready. You are training your mind to lead. Because if you do not change the way you think, you will repeat the same year in different forms. But if you change the way you think, your life begins to change almost immediately, not magically, structurally. And that is how real transformation begins. Chapter 2. Build mental toughness by doing hard things. Daily, most people say they want to be strong. Very few are willing to live the life that strength requires. Mental toughness is not an attitude you adopt when life forces you into a corner. It is not something that suddenly appears when pressure hits. Mental toughness is a skill, and like every skill, it is built through repetition long before you need it. Strength is forged in moments you could easily avoid. Every day, life presents you with two paths. One is comfortable. It asks very little of you. It allows you to stay the same. The other is uncomfortable. It requires effort. It requires focus. It requires you to override impulse. The difference between people who become mentally unbreakable and people who collapse under pressure is simple. One chooses the harder path, daily. Not occasionally. Not when motivated. Daily. The hard path does not get easier. You get stronger. And strength changes how pressure feels. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. What once exhausted you becomes routine. What once scared you becomes familiar. Mental toughness is not loud. It is not aggressive. It is quiet, calm, and controlled. It is the ability to stay composed when everything around you feels unstable. It is the ability to keep showing up when your emotions are pulling you toward escape. It is consistency when no one is watching. This is where most people misunderstand toughness. They think it is about intensity or dominance. It is not. It is about reliability. Can you rely on yourself when it is inconvenient? Can you trust yourself when the task is boring, uncomfortable, or unrewarded? Every time you do something hard on purpose, you send yourself a message, a simple message. I don't back down. That message matters more than praise, more than validation, more than external recognition, because identity is built internally before it is ever seen externally. The purpose of doing hard things is not to impress anyone. It is to reshape how you see yourself. Think about the daily decisions that require effort. Waking up when your body wants to stay in bed. training when your muscles are sore, studying when your mind wants to scroll, speaking up when your voice feels uncertain, following through when no one is checking. These moments look small. They are not small. They are identity training. From a scientific perspective, controlled discomfort strengthens your stress tolerance. When you voluntarily expose yourself to manageable stress, your nervous system adapts. It becomes less reactive, less panicked, more regulated. This is not punishment. This is preparation. You are teaching your system that discomfort is survivable. That effort does not equal danger. From a deeper perspective, discipline is self-respect in motion. When your actions align with your values, internal friction disappears. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop negotiating with weakness. You become coherent. And coherence creates calm power. This is why mental strength does not show up during chaos unless it was built during calm. You do not become resilient in the middle of the storm. You become resilient by training before the storm arrives. When life hits hard, your mind will default to its strongest pattern. If that pattern is avoidance, you will avoid. If that pattern is effort, you will move. That is why doing hard things daily is non-negotiable. You do not need extreme challenges. You need consistent ones. Wake up without hitting snooze. Finish what you start. Stick to your plan even when your mood changes. Tell the truth when it would be easier to avoid it. Push one more rep. Read one more page. Work one more focused block. These moments accumulate. They create proof. And proof creates belief. When you repeatedly prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort, your confidence becomes grounded, not emotional, earned. Mental toughness is not about being emotionless. It is about being emotionally stable. You still feel tired. You still feel fear. You still feel doubt. The difference is, you no longer obey those feelings automatically. You act based on principle, not impulse. This is maturity. This is leadership. This is the foundation of long-term success. When you choose discomfort intentionally, you stop needing motivation. You stop asking for perfect conditions. You stop wishing things were easier. Instead, you sharpen, you focus, you become capable of action, regardless of mood. And that is real power. The world does not need more people who collapse under pressure. It needs people who can stand steady when things fall apart. People who do not panic. People who do not quit. People who do not outsource responsibility to circumstances. Those people are not born. They are built. Day by day. Choice by choice. Habit by habit. This path will not always be praised. Many people will misunderstand it. They will tell you to slow down, to be gentler, to wait until you feel ready. But if you have been stuck for too long, comfort is not kindness. Movement is. Every day, choose the harder option. Not recklessly, intentionally. Do it without expecting applause. Do it without demanding immediate results. The reward is not external. The reward is who you become. Because once mental toughness is built, no one can take it from you. No situation can erase it. You carry it into every area of your life. Your work, your health, your relationships, your decisions. You bend, but you do not break. You adjust, but you do not retreat. That is what happens when you do hard things daily. Chapter 3. Train your focus to stay locked on goals. Success is not complicated. Most people already know what they need to do. The real problem is not knowledge. It is staying focused long enough to finish what they start. Goals do not fail because people are incapable. They fail because attention leaks. It drifts. It scatters. It gets sold to distractions that promise comfort, but deliver nothing. People start strong, then their mind wanders, then momentum fades, then doubt appears, and eventually, they quit. Not because the goal was wrong, but because their focus disappeared. Focus is a skill, and like any skill, it must be trained deliberately. We live in a world that competes aggressively for your attention. Notifications, endless content, constant noise, artificial urgency. Everything is designed to pull you away from deep work and into shallow stimulation. Every time your attention is hijacked, your progress slows. And when progress slows long enough, belief weakens. That is how dreams quietly die. Focus is not about doing more. It is about doing less, with precision. It is the decision to remove what does not matter, so energy can be concentrated on what does. If you try to move in too many directions, you move nowhere. If you keep looking sideways at what others are doing, you lose sight of your own path. When your attention is everywhere, your results are nowhere. The first step to focus is a decision. Your attention is no longer for sale. You stop giving it away to things that do not move your life forward. You stop letting boredom, discomfort, or curiosity dictate your behavior. You decide that certain blocks of time belong to your future, not to distraction. This requires structure. Focus does not survive in chaos. If your schedule is open to everything, your mind will follow the easiest option. You need boundaries, time blocks, clear rules. You need to decide when you work, what you work on, and what is ignored during that time. Without rules, focus collapses. Your brain is not designed for constant switching. Every time you jump between tasks, you burn mental energy. You fragment your thinking. You scatter momentum. That is why so many people feel busy, but ineffective. They do many things, but nothing deeply. At the end of the day, they are tired, yet no closer to what they actually want. Focus feels difficult because it requires you to sit with resistance. The urge to check, the urge to escape, the urge to stop. These urges are not signals of failure. They are signals that your focus muscle is weak. And weakness is not a flaw. It is a starting point. You train focus the same way you train strength. Small, controlled effort, repeated consistently. Choose one task, one target, one block of time. Put your phone away. Remove interruptions, and stay. At first, your mind will fight you. It will wander. It will search for stimulation. That is normal. Each time you bring it back, you strengthen control. 30 minutes of true focus is more powerful than hours of scattered effort. This is where discipline becomes internal. You are no longer waiting to feel focused. You are practicing focus. From a scientific perspective, attention has a cost. Every shift drains cognitive resources. When those resources are depleted, willpower collapses. That is why focus must be protected early in the day and early in the task. You do your most important work before your attention is exhausted. From a deeper perspective, attention is energy with direction. Where your attention goes, your internal signal strengthens. When your attention is fragmented, your energy is fragmented. When your attention is steady, your energy becomes coherent. And coherence creates momentum. People who achieve meaningful goals are not more motivated than you. They are more focused. They stay locked in while others drift. They return to the work while others switch paths. And over time, that difference compounds. Focus compounds like interest. One day of deep work becomes weeks of progress. One clear goal becomes dozens of finished results. It is not about perfection. It is about staying. Distraction offers relief. Focus offers results. Relief fades quickly. Results build confidence. Confidence reinforces focus. and that cycle becomes self-sustaining. You must treat focus as non-negotiable. Protect it like something valuable, because it is. Your focus time is where your future is built. It is where you separate yourself from the crowd. It is where potential becomes reality. Do not wait for the perfect mood. Focus is not emotional. It is intentional. You decide to stay with the task, even when it feels boring, repetitive, or slow. That boredom is not a problem. It is a threshold. Cross it, and depth appears. You will not always succeed. Some days your mind will wander. Some days distractions will win. That is part of training. The goal is improvement, not perfection. Can you stay focused a little longer today than yesterday? Can you resist one more urge? Can you return one more time? That is how mastery is built. If you want a different future, you must give your attention to it today. Not casually, not occasionally, deliberately. Train your focus, guard it, strengthen it. Because your ability to stay locked in is the difference between talking about your goals and living them. Chapter 4. Control your thoughts before they control your actions. Your life will always follow the direction of your strongest thoughts. Not your intentions, not your wishes, your strongest thoughts. The ones that repeat automatically. The ones that appear under pressure. The ones that speak first when something goes wrong. If those thoughts are filled with fear, doubt, or limitation, your actions will reflect hesitation, avoidance, and delay. If those thoughts are clear, grounded, and disciplined, your actions will reflect movement, ownership, and progress. This is why controlling your thoughts is not optional. It is essential. Most people believe their thoughts are harmless background noise. They are not. Thoughts are instructions. Every thought you repeat sends a signal to your nervous system. That signal influences how your body responds, how your emotions react, and how your behavior unfolds. Before you quit, you think about quitting. Before you act, you decide internally that action is possible. Nothing happens without a thought leading it. If you do not take control of your thinking will take control of you. And when that happens, you stop leading your life and start reacting to it. The mistake most people make is accepting the first thought as truth. A doubt appears, and they obey it. A fear surfaces, and they surrender to it. A negative interpretation forms, and they treat it as fact. They do not question it. They do not challenge it. They let it decide their next move. That is how people get stuck for years without realizing why. You must interrupt this process. Awareness is the first step. Start listening to how you talk to yourself, not when things are going well, but when they are not. What do you say when you fail? What do you say when progress is slow? What do you say when you feel behind? Those moments reveal your mental defaults. Ask yourself honestly, are these thoughts helping you grow or keeping you small? Do they give you energy or drain it? Do they move you forward or keep you frozen? Many people are exhausted not because they work too hard, but because their mind is constantly working against them. A negative inner dialogue creates internal resistance. Resistance drains energy faster than effort ever could. From a scientific perspective, this is where metacognition matters. The ability to observe your thoughts instead of identifying with them gives you leverage. You are not trying to eliminate thoughts. You are choosing which ones get authority. A thought can appear without permission. Obedience is optional. This is where you slow things down. When your mind is racing, you lose clarity. You react emotionally. You assume outcomes. You jump to worst-case scenarios. To regain control, you pause. You breathe. You step back. You ask better questions. Is this thought true? Is it useful? Is it the only interpretation available? These questions create space, and space gives you choice. You do not ignore what you feel. You acknowledge it. Then you lead anyway. When your thoughts say you are not good enough, you respond with grounded truth. You say, I am learning. I am improving. When your thoughts say it is too late, you respond, now is always a valid starting point. When your thoughts say you always fail, you respond, that was a version of me. I am building a new one. You are not lying to yourself. You are directing yourself. There is a difference. Lying avoids reality. Leading chooses a constructive response to reality. Your emotions come from your thoughts, not your circumstances. Two people can face the same event and experience completely different emotional states. One feels defeated. The other feels challenged. The event is the same. The interpretation is not. And interpretation determines response. This is why mental discipline matters as much as physical discipline. You train your body in the gym. You must train your mind in moments of stress. When your thinking drifts toward fear or comfort, you pull it back. When it gets stuck in the past, you redirect it to the next action. When it spirals into doubt, you ground it in evidence and effort. This takes repetition. At first, your mind will resist. It will return to old patterns. That is expected. Every time you catch it and redirect it, you weaken the old pathway and strengthen a new one. Over time, the new pathway becomes default. Calm replaces panic. Clarity replaces confusion. Action replaces avoidance. You begin to notice the space between stimulus and response. That space is power. You stop panicking under pressure. You stop freezing when things go wrong. You stop quitting after mistakes. You think, you plan, you adjust. That is not motivation. That is mental control. And mental control is the foundation of anything that lasts. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who decides what to do with them. Just because a thought enters your mind does not mean it deserves your belief. And just because something feels true does not mean it is useful. You can always choose a better thought, a cleaner thought, a thought that aligns with the direction you are building toward. This is not a one-time shift. It is daily maintenance. Just like you clean your body, you clean your mind. You choose what you feed it. You choose what you repeat. You choose what you allow to stay. If you do not choose your thoughts, the world will choose them for you. And the world will fill your mind with urgency, fear, comparison, and noise. But you do not have to accept that. You can lead your thoughts instead of being led by them. And when you do, everything begins to change. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become clearer. That clarity is freedom. Chapter 5. Push through fear and do it anyway. Fear does not disappear with time. It disappears with movement. Most people misunderstand fear. They treat it like a warning sign that says, stop, wait, think more, prepare more. But fear is not a stop signal. It is a threshold, and thresholds are meant to be crossed. Fear stays exactly where it is until you move through it. You can analyze it. You can talk about it. You can wait for it to fade. It will not. Fear only loses power when it is met with action. And most of the time, what stands between you and your next level is not lack of skill, intelligence, or opportunity. It is fear, quiet fear, fear of failing, fear of judgment, fear of being exposed, fear of wasting effort, fear of discovering you are not as capable as you hope. This fear does not shout. It whispers. It says, maybe later. It says, not yet. It says, wait until you feel ready. And if you listen to it long enough, it becomes your identity. You do not overcome fear by feeling brave. You overcome fear by acting while you feel afraid. That is the difference between people who grow and people who remain stuck. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the refusal to let fear decide. Fear is not your enemy. Obedience to fear is. Fear shows up when something matters, when the outcome has weight, when the direction of your life is involved. That means fear is not proof you are on the wrong path. Often, it is proof you are on the right one. If you wait for certainty, you will wait forever. Certainty is a luxury reserved for hindsight. Progress requires commitment without guarantees. Action weakens fear. Overthinking strengthens it. Every time you hesitate, fear gains leverage. Every time you delay, fear grows more convincing. But the moment you act, something shifts. Your nervous system recalibrates. The imagined danger loses intensity. The story in your mind loses authority. From a scientific perspective, this is exposure. When you repeatedly face what you fear without catastrophic outcome, your brain updates its predictions. The threat signal weakens. The fear response diminishes. But this update only happens through experience, not thought. From a deeper perspective, fear is energy at the edge of growth. It is the boundary between who you have been and who you are becoming. You do not remove the boundary. You cross it. You do not need a perfect plan. You need a first step, then the next, then the next. Momentum is built through movement, not clarity. When you act despite fear, you send yourself a powerful message. Fear does not control me. That message compounds. It reshapes your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids. You start seeing yourself as someone who moves, and that changes everything. Think about the opportunities you did not take, the conversations you avoided, the risks you talked yourself out of. In each case, fear was allowed to decide. And each time fear decides, it reinforces its authority. But patterns can be broken. When fear speaks, you can listen without obeying. You can acknowledge it without negotiating with it. You can say, "I hear you, and I am moving anyway." That is leadership. Fear does not disappear after success. Success simply introduces new levels of fear. The difference is tolerance. The more often you move through fear, the more familiar it becomes. Not smaller. Familiar. And familiarity removes paralysis. You stop being afraid of feeling afraid. That is where power rises. Most people never discover their capacity because fear convinces them to stay comfortable. Comfort feels safe, but it keeps your life small. Growth requires friction. Progress requires risk. Becoming requires courage. You will feel shaky. You will make mistakes. You will feel exposed. That is not failure. That is initiation. Confidence is not built before action. It is built because of action. Every time you push through fear, you gain evidence. Evidence that you can survive discomfort. Evidence that you can adapt. Evidence that fear is not fatal. That evidence is unshakable. Stop treating fear like a wall. Treat it like a doorway that leads to expansion, strength, and clarity. But no one can push you through it. You must walk through it yourself. Decide now that fear will no longer write your story. Decide that discomfort is not a reason to stop. Decide that your future matters more than your temporary relief. Do it afraid. Do it uncertain. Do it imperfectly. But do it. Because the person you are becoming exists on the other side of the action you keep avoiding. And the moment you move, fear begins to lose. Chapter 6. Fix your attitude when life feels unfair. Life is not fair. It never was, and it never will be. That truth can either harden you or free you. Most people fight it. They argue with reality. They replay what should have happened. They measure their effort against someone else's outcome. And in doing so, they hand over their power. Because the moment you demand fairness from life, you place your peace outside your control. The moment you release that demand, you take your power back. Unfair things happen to everyone. You will be misunderstood. You will be overlooked. You will watch others move ahead with less effort. Some people will be born with advantages you never had. Others will fail and be given second chances while you are still waiting on your first. This is not a flaw in the system. This is the system. The question is not whether life is fair. The question is who you become when it isn't. Your attitude is the one thing you control when everything else feels unstable. Not your circumstances, not other people's behavior, not timing. Your attitude. And attitude is not optimism. It is orientation. It is the lens through which you interpret events and decide how to respond. A negative attitude magnifies pain. It turns inconvenience into catastrophe. It drains energy before action even begins. It convinces you that you are stuck when you are not. A strong attitude does not deny difficulty. It accepts difficulty without surrendering identity. You do not need life to be fair, to be effective. Most people wait. They wait for fairness before giving their best. They wait for recognition before staying consistent. They wait for apologies before letting go of resentment. And while they wait, they stagnate. Because waiting for fairness is passive. Growth is active. When life feels unfair, blame is tempting. Blame feels relieving because it shifts responsibility outward. But blame comes at a cost. It keeps your focus on what you cannot control. It creates helplessness. And helplessness slowly erodes belief in your ability to change anything. Attitude reverses that erosion. Ask a different question. Not, why is this happening to me? But, who do I choose to be in this moment? Not, what do I deserve? But, what can I do with what is in my hands right now? That shift changes your posture. You stop collapsing inward. You stand upright mentally. You reclaim agency. Your attitude is not based on what happens. It is based on what you focus on. Focus on unfairness, and bitterness grows. Focus on action, and momentum builds. Even small actions taken with a grounded attitude can shift your entire day. And repeated daily, they reshape your life. No one is coming to fix your attitude for you. That is your responsibility. You can wait to be understood, or you can decide that your peace does not require permission. You can waste energy wishing things were different, or you can use that same energy to build something better. This is where strength is revealed. Fixing your attitude does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means accepting that while everything may not be fine, you can still be disciplined. You can still be clear. You can still be consistent. You can still act in alignment with your standards. That is emotional maturity. From a scientific perspective, attitude shapes interpretation, and interpretation shapes stress response. Two people can experience the same unfair event. One becomes bitter and rigid. The other becomes adaptive and focused. The difference is cognitive framing. One frames the event as a personal injustice. The other frames it as a challenge to be navigated. From a deeper perspective, resentment is leaked energy. It ties your internal state to external events you cannot change. When you release resentment, you reclaim that energy. You stop feeding the past. You start investing in the next step. Every unfair situation is a test. not of your skill, but of your character, not of your intelligence, but of your stability. Life is not asking whether you are talented. It is asking whether you can stay aligned with your values when conditions are not in your favor. Sometimes you will do everything right and still not see immediate results. That does not mean you are failing. It means you are in the phase where consistency is being tested. Progress is often invisible before it is obvious. If you let that invisibility poison your attitude, you sabotage the outcome before it arrives. Think about the people you respect most. They are not defined by how they act when life is easy. They are defined by how they show up when it isn't. Calm under pressure. Steady when overlooked. Focused when delayed. They did not get that way because life was fair to them. They got that way because they chose their attitude every day. And you can do the same. No matter what is happening right now, you still have choice. You can choose to focus on what you control. You can choose to keep moving. You can choose to protect your energy. You can choose not to let circumstances dictate your inner state. Over time, life responds to that posture. Not immediately, not dramatically, but consistently. Strength compounds, discipline compounds, a grounded attitude compounds. Fix your attitude today, not for approval, not for recognition, but because you deserve clarity. You deserve peace. You deserve to live without carrying bitterness that does nothing but weigh you down. Life may not be fair, but you can still be powerful. And that power begins with attitude. Chapter 7. Take full ownership of everything in your life. Taking full ownership of your life is the moment you stop waiting to be saved. Ownership is not blame. It is not self-punishment. It is not shame. Ownership is clarity. It is the decision to stand in the center of your life instead of observing it from the sidelines. When you take ownership, you stop asking who caused this and start asking what you will do next. And that question changes everything. Most people avoid ownership because it feels heavy. It feels like admitting failure. It feels like standing alone without excuses. But what they don't realize is that ownership is the strongest position you can take. The moment you own your situation, you gain leverage over it. You move from reaction to direction. Your life today is the result of choices. Choices you made. Choices you avoided. Choices you delayed. That is not an accusation. It is a fact. And facts are powerful because they can be worked with. You may not control every event that happened to you, but you control how you responded. You control what you repeated. You control what you tolerated. You control what you learned and what you ignored. Ownership begins when you accept that distinction fully. When something goes wrong, there are two paths. You can blame circumstances, people, timing, or luck. Or you can ask, what can I learn from this? And what can I control right now? One path keeps you stuck. The other moves you forward. Slowly at first, then steadily. Ownership turns frustration into focus. Most people stay trapped because they are waiting for someone else to change. A boss, a partner, a system, a situation. But waiting keeps you powerless. Ownership gives you agency. It reminds you that even if you cannot control the environment, you can control your effort, your mindset, and your consistency. That is enough to change everything. Taking ownership also means owning your mistakes without destroying yourself for them. Mistakes are feedback, not verdicts. They show you where your strategy failed, where your discipline slipped, where your attention drifted. If you hide from that information, you repeat it. If you own it, you adjust. Ownership breaks the cycle of helplessness. From a psychological perspective, this is the shift from external control to internal control. People who believe their life is controlled by outside forces experience more stress, more anxiety, and less motivation. People who believe they influence outcomes experience greater resilience and persistence. Ownership is not about controlling everything. It is about controlling what is controllable. From a deeper perspective, freedom is responsibility accepted voluntarily. When you stop blaming, you stop leaking energy. You stop rehearsing stories that justify inaction. You reclaim the power to choose again. Ownership also means your emotions do not excuse your behavior. Feeling tired does not excuse quitting. Feeling discouraged does not excuse avoidance. Feeling angry does not excuse reaction. You acknowledge your emotions. Then you act according to your values anyway. That is leadership. When you take ownership, excuses lose their appeal. You stop negotiating with comfort. You stop explaining why you can't. You start asking how you can. You stop waiting for conditions to improve and start improving your conditions. This does not make life easy. It makes it honest. Ownership clarifies priorities. When you accept responsibility, you stop wasting energy on blame and comparison. You focus on habits, on routines, on daily decisions. You begin to see that growth is not a mystery. It is the result of repeated action aligned with intention. And something else happens. People respond differently to you, not because you demand it, but because ownership signals reliability. People trust those who own their outcomes. They respect those who do not hide behind excuses. Opportunities open for those who take responsibility, because responsibility is rare. Ownership is not a single decision. It is a daily practice. Every morning you decide how you will show up. Will you blame the past or learn from it? Will you complain about your situation or act to improve it? Will you let fear guide you or will you move anyway? Those decisions, repeated, shape your future. The people who succeed are not the ones with perfect lives. They are the ones who fully own the life they have. They adjust quickly. They learn continuously. They do not collapse under mistakes. They use them. Ownership gives you the freedom to change direction without guilt. It allows you to rewrite your story at any moment. It gives you peace because you know you are doing what you can. Ask yourself honestly, where have you been avoiding responsibility? What habits are holding you back? What excuses have you been protecting? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Comfort delays growth. Truth accelerates it. Carrying ownership may feel heavy at first, but it is lighter than carrying blame. Blame creates resentment. Ownership creates movement. Blame keeps you tied to the past. Ownership pulls you forward. When you fully own your life, you stop waiting for permission. You stop hoping for miracles. You start trusting your ability to adapt and build. You answer to yourself first. And that self-respect builds confidence that no external approval ever could. You may not control every outcome, but you always control your effort. You always control your standards. You always control your response. And when you accept that fully, you realize something powerful. You have more influence over your future than you thought. Ownership is the foundation of all lasting success. Without it, you wait. With it, you move. Choose ownership. Step into the driver's seat, and do not give that control away again. Chapter 8. Keep showing up even when nothing feels easy. There will be days when everything inside you feels heavy. Your body feels slow. Your mind feels doubtful. Your effort feels invisible. progress feels distant. And in those moments, the voice inside you will ask a dangerous question. What's the point? This is where most people disappear. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack potential, but because they stop showing up, when showing up stops feeling rewarding. They confuse discomfort with failure. They mistake silence for a sign to quit. But showing up when nothing feels easy is the quiet skill that separates those who build real lives from those who live in cycles. Consistency is not dramatic. It is not exciting. It is repetitive, unglamorous, and often lonely. And that is why it works. Because very few people are willing to do what does not immediately reward them. Growth lives in that gap. There will be seasons when effort produces no visible outcome. You work, and nothing changes. You try, and nothing responds. You improve, and no one notices. That phase is not punishment. It is preparation. It is where discipline replaces motivation, and identity begins to form. Most people quit in this phase because they expect feedback too early. Showing up is not about feeling strong. It is about honoring a commitment you made to yourself before things got hard. It is about acting in alignment with who you decided to become, not how you happen to feel today. Motivation is emotional. Showing up is structural. When you show up consistently, you build trust with yourself. And self-trust is more powerful than confidence. Confidence can rise and fall. Self-trust is earned. It comes from evidence. Evidence that when things are uncomfortable, you still act. That evidence changes how you see yourself. From a behavioral perspective, consistency creates momentum. Action creates action. Even small movement breaks stagnation. When you stop showing up, resistance grows. When you continue, resistance weakens. Momentum does not require intensity. It requires continuity. From a deeper perspective, repeated presence stabilizes your internal state. When you show up regardless of mood, you stop being ruled by emotional fluctuations. You become grounded, reliable, coherent. And coherence creates inner strength. Showing up does not mean performing perfectly. Some days your effort will be messy. Some days your focus will be scattered. Some days your output will disappoint you. That is not failure. Failure is disappearance. Progress does not require perfection. It requires presence. Every time you show up, even imperfectly, you weaken the part of you that wants to quit. You strengthen the part that knows you can endure. Over time, endurance becomes identity. Life will test you by making progress feel slow. That is intentional. It is asking whether you are committed to the process or addicted to results. Results arrive when the process has been honored long enough. You cannot control timing. You can control attendance. This is where patience is trained. Not passive patience, but active patience. The patience to continue working without reassurance. The patience to keep building without applause. The patience to trust that effort compounds even when you cannot see it yet. People who succeed long-term are not the ones who feel inspired every day. They are the ones who built a habit of showing up even on days they would rather disappear. Showing up is not a feeling. It is a decision. And that decision, repeated daily, creates resilience. Resilience allows you to absorb stress without breaking. It allows you to adjust instead of retreat. It allows you to keep moving forward while others stop to recover from discomfort they never trained for. Your life will present distractions, setbacks, and failures. These are not signs to stop. They are invitations to strengthen the habit of presence. Each time you show up despite resistance, you become harder to derail. Showing up also simplifies life. When attendance is non-negotiable, you stop debating with yourself. You stop wasting energy on internal arguments. You remove the daily question of whether you will act. The answer is already decided. This creates peace. One of the biggest lies is that success comes from massive breakthroughs. In reality, it comes from small actions repeated long after excitement fades. Showing up is the foundation beneath every achievement that lasts. When you keep showing up, you build patience. You learn that progress is not linear. You stop panicking when results are slow. You stop switching paths prematurely. You stay with the work long enough for it to work on you. That patience becomes strength. You may not see immediate change, but something is always changing. Skills sharpen, habits stabilize, identity evolves. Even when the outside is quiet, the inside is being built. Your future self depends on your presence today, not your mood, not your confidence, your presence. So show up when it feels easy. Show up when it feels hard. Show up when no one is watching. Show up when results are invisible, not because it feels good, because it matters. The willingness to show up when nothing feels easy is what turns effort into destiny. Chapter 9. Speak to yourself with belief and real honesty. The voice you hear most in your life is not from the outside. It is the one inside your own mind. And that voice is shaping you every day, whether you are aware of it or not. Your inner dialogue is not harmless commentary. It is instruction. It guides your decisions, sets your emotional tone, and determines how you respond when pressure appears. If that voice speaks in doubt, judgment, or defeat, you will live cautiously, hesitantly, and below your capacity. If it speaks with belief and real honesty, you build a foundation that can carry weight. Belief without honesty becomes delusion. Honesty without belief becomes cruelty. You need both. Speaking to yourself with belief does not mean pretending everything is fine. It does not mean ignoring weakness or avoiding responsibility. Belief means you assume growth is possible. It means you trust that effort matters. It means you remind yourself that you are capable of learning, adapting, and improving, even when results are not immediate. Real honesty means you face your reality without hiding from it. You admit when you are inconsistent. You admit when you are avoiding discomfort. You admit when your habits are not aligned with your goals. But you do not use honesty as a weapon against yourself. You use it as a tool for correction. Most people struggle because their inner voice is either too soft or too harsh. Too soft, and nothing changes. Too harsh, and motivation collapses. The balance is firm, calm leadership, the kind of tone you would use with someone you care about and are responsible for guiding. When you fail, do you insult yourself or do you correct yourself? When progress is slow, do you label yourself incapable or do you adjust your approach? These responses matter. Over time, they become identity. From a scientific perspective, repeated self-talk reinforces neural pathways. The brain does not distinguish between an external voice and an internal one when it comes to emotional response. Harsh inner dialogue triggers stress. Supportive, grounded dialogue stabilizes the nervous system and improves performance. How you speak to yourself affects how clearly you think. From a deeper perspective, words shape internal alignment. Language carries direction. When your words align with growth, your actions follow. When your words contradict your goals, internal friction appears. Speaking with belief means choosing language that keeps you moving forward. When a thought says, "I can't," you respond, "I'm learning how." When a thought says, "I'm not enough," you respond, "I am improving." These are not lies. They are accurate frames that support effort instead of paralysis. Honesty means asking yourself hard questions without defensiveness. Are you actually doing the work? Are you being consistent or just busy? Are you avoiding discomfort and calling it strategy? These questions are uncomfortable, but they clarify direction. Your inner voice should challenge you without breaking you. One powerful practice is to speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you are mentoring. You would not tear them down for mistakes. You would not lie to them either. You would point out what needs improvement and remind them of what they are capable of. That is the tone you need internally. Belief is strengthened by evidence. Recall moments when you did something difficult, times when you persisted, times when you adapted. These moments are proof. Use them. When doubt appears, respond with evidence, not emotion. Over time, belief becomes quieter and more stable. It is no longer hype. It is trust, built through repetition. Honest self-talk also includes knowing when to rest, when to ask for help, and when to adjust goals. Belief does not mean forcing endlessly. It means acting intelligently while remaining committed. Changing your inner dialogue takes practice. At first, negative thoughts will appear automatically. Do not fight them. Replace them. Each replacement weakens the old pattern and strengthens the new one. This is training, not perfection. Your self-talk shapes your identity. Identity shapes your behavior. Behavior shapes your life. Choose your words carefully. Speak to yourself with belief that supports effort and honesty, that guides improvement. That voice will either become your strongest ally or your greatest obstacle. Decide now which one it will be. Chapter 10. Act every day like success is your duty. Success is not a wish. It is not a mood. It is not something that happens when conditions finally line up in your favor. Success is a responsibility, and responsibilities do not wait for motivation. When you act like success is your duty, you stop treating progress as optional. You stop negotiating with comfort. You stop waiting to feel inspired. You act because action is required, not because it feels good, because it matters. Most people treat success like a hope, something they think about, something they talk about, something they plan for someday. But hopes are passive. Duties are active. A duty demands presence. A duty demands consistency. A duty demands follow-through, even when enthusiasm disappears. Every day presents a choice. You can move closer to the life you want, or you can drift. Drift feels harmless, but drift compounds just as powerfully as discipline, only in the wrong direction. When success becomes your duty, your priorities sharpen. You stop asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" and start asking, "What needs to be done?" That shift removes friction. It simplifies decisions. It removes the daily internal debate that exhausts most people before they even begin. Acting with duty does not mean being extreme. It means being reliable. You show up when you said you would. You do the work you committed to. You protect time that builds your future. You make decisions that align with your long-term direction, not your short-term comfort. This mindset creates accountability. You stop outsourcing responsibility to motivation, mood, or circumstance. You become your own leader. You do not wait for someone to push you. You push yourself because you understand what is at stake. From a behavioral perspective, duty-based action builds habit strength faster than emotion-based action. When behavior is tied to identity and responsibility, it becomes stable. When it is tied to feeling, it becomes fragile. Duty creates structure. Structure creates momentum. From a deeper perspective, duty is devotion to your potential. It is respect for what you are capable of becoming. When you act as if success is your duty, you honor the version of yourself that exists beyond comfort and fear. This changes how you experience obstacles. Challenges are no longer reasons to stop. They become part of the job. Setbacks become feedback. Delays become tests of commitment. You stop asking whether the path is easy and start asking whether the action aligns with who you are becoming. Daily action with a sense of duty builds confidence. Not emotional confidence, but earned confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. That confidence removes hesitation. It strengthens decision-making. It makes you effective under pressure. You do not need to do everything at once. You need to do the right things consistently. Small actions done daily with intention outperform dramatic effort done occasionally. Success is not built in bursts. It is built in rhythm. Planning matters here. Break goals into daily actions. Schedule what matters. Protect those blocks of time. Remove friction. Build systems that make showing up easier and excuses harder. Your environment matters. Your circle matters. Surround yourself with people who respect effort and consistency. Distance yourself from influences that normalize distraction and avoidance. Discipline is contagious. So is complacency. Acting like success is your duty does not mean doing everything alone. It means taking initiative. It means seeking knowledge, asking for help, learning from those who have already walked the path. Duty includes humility. This mindset also builds patience. When you see success as a long-term responsibility, you stop demanding immediate reward. You understand that progress is cumulative. You accept delay without quitting. You stay steady while others rush and burn out. You become someone others can rely on, not because you talk about discipline, but because you live it. That reliability creates trust. Trust creates opportunity. Opportunity expands your reach. You cannot wait for perfect conditions to act with duty. Perfect conditions do not exist. Start where you are. Use what you have. Take the next step. Then take the next one. Every action taken with this mindset strengthens identity. Identity strengthens behavior. Behavior shapes destiny. Success is not a single event. It is a daily responsibility. One you either carry or avoid. Carry it long enough, and your life reflects it. Act like success is your duty, and let your actions prove it. Chapter 11. Build a personal code that does not negotiate. If you want consistency, you need rules, not motivation, not inspiration. Rules. Most people fail not because they lack desire, but because they negotiate with themselves too often. They wake up each day and redecide who they are allowed to be. They re-argue their standards. They reopen doors that should have been closed. And every negotiation drains power. A personal code ends negotiation. A personal code is a set of non-negotiables, decisions you have already made in advance, standards you do not debate with your mood, principles that remain stable regardless of how you feel, how tired you are, or how inconvenient the moment becomes. When you lack a code, every challenge becomes a discussion. When you have a code, every challenge becomes execution. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. Discipline is not willpower. Willpower is fragile. Discipline is decision removal. It is eliminating choice where choice creates weakness. A code answers questions before they arise. When resistance shows up, the code speaks for you. When temptation appears, the code responds. When discomfort arrives, the code holds the line. You are no longer asking, "Should I?" You are acting because the answer was decided long ago. This is how elite performers protect energy. They do not rely on motivation. They rely on structure. They reduce the number of decisions they must make under pressure so that action becomes automatic. From a scientific perspective, this works because decision fatigue is real. Every choice you make consumes mental resources. The more you debate, the weaker your self-control becomes. A personal code preserves cognitive energy for execution, not internal argument. From a deeper perspective, a code creates internal gravity. When your values are clear, your behavior orbits them naturally. You stop drifting. You stop reacting. You move with direction. Your code does not need to be complicated. It needs to be clear. Examples of non-negotiables. You do not skip training 2 days in a row. You do focused work before consuming content. You do not speak negatively about yourself. You finish what you start. You act on fear instead of analyzing it endlessly. These are not goals. They are rules. Rules remove emotion from execution. A strong code is built around identity, not outcomes. It is not, "I will succeed." It is, "I am the type of person who does not quit." Outcomes fluctuate. Identity holds. This is where many people fail. They build goals without building identity infrastructure. When discomfort appears, the goal feels distant, but identity is immediate. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. A personal code locks that alignment in place. There will be moments when your code feels inconvenient. That is the point. The code exists specifically for moments when motivation disappears. Anyone can act when it is easy. The code exists for when it is not. You do not need many rules. Too many create confusion. You need a small set of powerful principles that govern behavior automatically. Write them down, not mentally, physically. Language makes commitment tangible. Review them daily, especially when things feel unstable. Your code should answer, "What do I do when I don't feel like it? What do I do when I'm afraid? What do I do when progress is slow? What do I do when no one is watching?" If your code cannot answer those questions, it is incomplete. Living by a code will feel restrictive at first, but that restriction creates freedom. When decisions are already made, mental noise disappears, clarity increases, momentum builds. You stop living reactively. You start living deliberately. A personal code does not make life easy. It makes life simple, and simple scales. Build a code that does not negotiate, then live it. Chapter 12. Master the moment between trigger and response. Your entire life is shaped in a space most people never notice. That space is the moment between what happens to you and how you respond to it. Something goes wrong. Someone says something. A plan breaks. A delay appears. A mistake happens. In that instant, before action, before words, before emotion takes over, there is a gap. That gap is small, but it holds power, and the quality of your life depends on what you do inside it. Most people live on autopilot. Trigger appears, reaction follows, emotion leads, regret comes later. They do not choose their responses, they repeat them, and repetition becomes identity. Mastering this moment changes everything. The trigger is external. You do not control it. The response is internal. You always control that. The problem is not that emotions arise. Emotions are natural. The problem is that most people obey emotions instantly. They confuse feeling with command. They allow irritation to become reaction, fear to become avoidance, frustration to become quitting. But emotional impulse is not authority. The moment between trigger and response is where you reclaim leadership. It is where you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. The first skill is pause, not suppression. Pause. When something triggers you, slow it down. Breathe. One breath is enough. That breath interrupts the automatic loop. It signals the nervous system that there is no immediate danger. It creates space for clarity. From a physiological perspective, this matters because stress narrows perception. When you are triggered, your brain prioritizes survival over reasoning. Breathing re-engages regulation. It allows higher-level thinking to come back online. From a deeper perspective, stillness is strength. The ability to pause under pressure is a sign of internal authority. Calm is not weakness. Calm is control. Once you pause, label what is happening. Name the emotion without judgment. This is frustration. This is fear. This is disappointment. Labeling reduces intensity. It separates you from the emotion instead of merging with it. You are not the emotion. You are the observer of it. Then comes the most important question. What is the next responsible action? Not the perfect action, not the emotionally satisfying action, the responsible one. Responsibility anchors response. It pulls you out of impulse and into intention. It connects the moment to your values instead of your feelings. This is where training shows. When you practice this consistently, reactions lose their grip. You stop escalating situations unnecessarily. You stop saying things you regret. You stop sabotaging progress because of momentary discomfort. You begin to respond instead of react. From a scientific angle, this is regulation through repetition. Each time you choose response over reaction, you strengthen neural pathways associated with self-control. Over time, the pause becomes natural. Calm becomes default. From a deeper angle, this is alignment. When intention, emotion, and action are brought into coherence, internal friction disappears. You conserve energy. You move with clarity. Mastering this moment does not mean you never feel anger, fear, or frustration. It means those emotions no longer run your life. They inform you, then release control. This skill shows up everywhere. In conversations, in work, in conflict, in failure, in delay, in pressure. When you master the gap, you master direction. Life will continue to present triggers. That will not stop. What changes is who you become in response to them. You stop being reactive. You stop being predictable. You stop being controlled by circumstance. You become steady, and steadiness is power. Train the pause. Own the response. Protect the gap. Because in that gap, your future is decided. Chapter 13. Replace comfort-seeking with purpose-seeking. Most people are not lazy. They are comfort-trained. They have learned, often without realizing it, to move toward what feels good now, instead of what builds something meaningful later. Comfort promises relief. Purpose demands effort. And when life becomes tiring, comfort is loud, while purpose is quiet. But comfort does not move your life forward. It keeps it familiar. Comfort-seeking shows up in subtle ways. Scrolling instead of starting. Overthinking instead of acting. Planning instead of executing. Waiting instead of committing. These behaviors feel harmless in the moment, but repeated over time, they shape a life of delay. Purpose-seeking feels different. It does not always feel pleasant. It does not always reward you immediately, but it gives direction, and direction creates momentum. The problem is not that comfort exists. The problem is when comfort becomes the decision maker. Every time you choose comfort over purpose, you reinforce a pattern. You teach your mind that avoidance is acceptable, that effort is optional, that discomfort should be escaped. And over time, that lesson becomes identity. Replacing comfort with purpose begins with awareness. Notice where you reach for relief. Notice the moments when resistance appears and your first instinct is distraction. Notice how often you choose ease not because it is best, but because it is available. This is not judgment. It is data. Purpose-seeking does not require heroic action. It requires intentional substitution. When you feel the urge to escape, you choose a purposeful micro-action instead. One page, one message, one focused block, one honest conversation, one physical movement. Small actions redirect energy. From a neurological perspective, comfort-seeking is driven by immediate reward systems. Purpose-seeking trains delayed reward tolerance. Each time you choose effort over ease, you strengthen your ability to wait for meaningful outcomes. That ability separates builders from consumers. From a deeper perspective, purpose is a directional force. When you act with purpose, your energy organizes. You stop scattering attention. You stop leaking effort. You become internally aligned. Comfort numbs. Purpose clarifies. Purpose does not eliminate fatigue, but it gives fatigue meaning. When effort is connected to direction, endurance increases. When effort feels random, exhaustion arrives quickly. This is why people burn out chasing comfort, and why people endure when chasing purpose. Replacing comfort-seeking with purpose-seeking requires you to tolerate boredom. Focused work is not stimulating. Repetition is not exciting. Progress is often quiet. If you require excitement to act, you will quit early. If you accept boredom as part of mastery, you will last. Ask yourself regularly, is this choice moving me toward who I want to become, or is it just helping me avoid discomfort? That question cuts through illusion. Purpose-seeking also simplifies decisions. When purpose is clear, many options disappear. You stop chasing distractions that do not serve your direction. You say no more often. You protect energy. This is not deprivation. It is alignment. You are not removing joy. You are postponing shallow relief in exchange for deep fulfillment. And fulfillment lasts longer than comfort ever will. The world trains you to seek ease. Growth requires you to choose meaning instead. Replace comfort-seeking with purpose-seeking. Do it daily. Do it quietly. Do it consistently. That replacement rewrites your trajectory. Chapter 14. Make discipline your default identity. Discipline is not something you turn on when motivation fails. Discipline is who you become when motivation is no longer in control. Most people treat discipline like a tool, something they use occasionally, when they feel serious, when pressure rises, when consequences are close. That approach fails because discipline cannot survive as an accessory. It must become an identity. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. If you see yourself as someone who tries, you will try. If you see yourself as someone who shows up, you will show up. If you see yourself as someone who does what must be done, you will act, regardless of how you feel. Identity drives behavior more powerfully than desire ever could. When discipline is your identity, action is automatic. You no longer debate whether to do the work. You no longer argue with yourself about consistency. You do what aligns with who you are, and alignment removes friction. This is why discipline feels exhausting to some people and empowering to others. For one group, discipline is a fight against identity. For the other, discipline is an expression of identity. The shift happens when you stop asking, "Can I stay disciplined?" and start stating, "This is what I do." Discipline becomes default when it is built through evidence. Small wins, repeated actions, daily follow-through. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce the identity of someone who can be trusted. Trust compounds. identity stabilizes. From a behavioral perspective, this is identity-based habit formation. You do not force discipline. You prove it into existence. Action first. Identity follows. Over time, the identity becomes strong enough to pull behavior automatically. From a deeper perspective, discipline is coherence. Your thoughts, values, and actions are no longer in conflict. You stop leaking energy through inconsistency. You stop feeling divided. When discipline becomes default, your internal system quiets down. There is peace in alignment. Making discipline your identity does not mean perfection. It means reliability. You may miss a day. You may slip. But you do not abandon the pattern. You return without drama. You correct without self-attack. Discipline is resilient, not rigid. This identity also changes how you experience resistance. Resistance does not disappear, but it loses authority. It becomes background noise instead of command. You feel the urge to avoid, but you act anyway because avoidance no longer matches who you are. That is freedom. Discipline as identity simplifies life. Decisions shrink. Excuses disappear. You stop explaining yourself to yourself. You conserve mental energy for execution and creation instead of debate. You do not wait for conditions to be right. You create conditions through action. This identity extends beyond work. It shows up in how you speak, how you train, how you rest, how you treat others, how you handle pressure. Discipline becomes character, and character is destiny in motion. You do not need to announce this identity. You do not need validation. Identity is private before it is visible. Let behavior speak. Let consistency reveal who you are. If you want discipline to be your default, start acting like the disciplined person now. Not later. Not after results appear. Now, identity is built in advance of outcomes. Make discipline who you are, not something you attempt, and your life will follow accordingly. Chapter 15. Turn setbacks into training. Data setbacks are not interruptions to your path. They are part of the training. Most people treat setbacks as verdicts, a failed attempt, a missed opportunity, a wrong decision, and suddenly the mind concludes something final. This isn't for me. I'm not good at this. I always mess things up. That interpretation is far more damaging than the setback itself. A setback is not a judgment. It is information. When you learn to treat setbacks as data, they lose their emotional charge. They stop defining you and start teaching you. Instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this showing me?" That shift turns pain into progress. Every meaningful path includes friction. If you remove struggle, you remove growth. What matters is not avoiding setbacks, but extracting value from them. The people who succeed long-term are not the ones who fail less. They are the ones who learn faster. A setback reveals something specific, a weakness in strategy, a gap in skill, a lapse in discipline, a misalignment in priorities, a pattern that needs to be corrected. If you ignore that information, the setback repeats. If you study it, it refines you. This is where emotional maturity matters. When something goes wrong, your first instinct may be frustration or disappointment. That is human. But what you do next determines direction. Do you collapse inward, or do you analyze outward? Turn emotion into observation. A simple framework changes everything. What happened? What did I control? What didn't I control? What will I adjust next time? This removes drama. It creates clarity. It keeps momentum intact. From a psychological perspective, this is anti-fragile thinking. Instead of breaking under stress, You use stress to improve the system. Each setback strengthens your approach rather than weakening your confidence. From a deeper perspective, pressure is a refining force. When you respond correctly, it does not damage you, it sharpens you. The same pressure that crushes one person forges another. The difference is interpretation. Setbacks also expose identity gaps. If a small failure makes you quit, the issue was not the failure. It was the fragility of identity. Strong identity absorbs failure without collapsing. It adapts. This is why discipline and ownership matter so deeply. When you own outcomes, setbacks become feedback, not threats. You stop protecting ego and start protecting progress. Many people sabotage themselves after a setback by disengaging completely. They miss a workout and quit the program. They make a mistake and abandon the project. They lose momentum and disappear. This is not because the setback was too big. It is because their response was untrained. Setbacks require containment, not escalation. You acknowledge what went wrong. You correct the course. You return to execution. No punishment, no self-attack, no dramatic reset, just adjustment and continuation. This builds resilience. Each time you recover quickly from a setback, you strengthen trust in yourself. You prove that mistakes do not derail you. You prove that progress is flexible. That trust compounds. Over time, setbacks stop feeling threatening. They feel familiar, manageable, expected. You stop fearing them, which removes one of the biggest brakes on action. This is how consistency survives real life. If you want to build something that lasts, you must normalize setbacks, not tolerate them. Use them. They are training data for the person you are becoming. The goal is not to avoid failure. The goal is to respond intelligently to it. When you do, setbacks stop slowing you down. They start speeding you up. Your life will not be changed by a single decision. It will be shaped by the pattern you repeat when no one is watching. You do not rise to motivation. You rise to training. Everything you have learned comes back to one truth. Your mind must be led, not followed. Your thoughts are instructions. Your habits are votes. Your actions are proof. When pressure arrives, and it will, you become whatever you have practiced being. Success is not luck. It is structure. Mental strength is built through chosen discomfort. Focus must be protected because attention builds the future. Fear is not a wall. It is a threshold. Ownership is freedom, not burden. Consistency matters more than intensity. Self-talk must be honest and strengthening. Discipline must become identity. Setbacks are data, not defeat. The world will remain noisy, unfair, and distracting. That does not change. What changes is how you stand inside it. Calm instead of reactive, clear instead of scattered, steady instead of drifting. You do not need to feel ready. You need to decide. You do not need perfect conditions. You need consistency. Begin where you are. Act anyway. Show up again tomorrow. Your future is not waiting for permission. It is waiting for execution. Thank you for listening with an open mind and heart. If a certain chapter or insight resonated most with you, share it in the comments. You might help someone else find exactly what they need today. Keep this book saved so you can return to its words whenever life calls for reflection or guidance. I wish you health, peace, and wisdom in every step you take.